like to call this meeting of the Show City Council to order. Show that all council members are present, with the exception of Councilman Alsop, who has to be excused tonight. Thank you guys for joining us. Tonight I've asked Councilman Hatchley's invocation, followed by the pledge by Vice Mayor Kakavas. If you'd like to join us, please stand.
Dear Father in heaven, we ask that thy Spirit be here with us tonight as we meet as the members of the Show City Council. We're thankful for the many blessings that we have on this mountain and for the way of life that we can lead here. Father, please comfort those that have suffered losses and tragedies in this last week. Guide our leaders to make correct decisions about how to move forward. Please be with our first responders and our military forces as they go about their duties and keep them safe. We appreciate their sacrifices, their commitment, and their efforts to keep our community safe from fire as the drought continues. Please help us to live our lives such that we are worthy of the freedoms that we have in this country, that we may preserve them. We pray this in the name of thy Son, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Before we sit, if y'all don't mind, I'd like to give a little silence for Officer Lopez up in White River. Thank you. Tell you before we move on, I went down for the candlelight vigil last night, and it was pretty sad when we lose something like that in our community. And it's unfortunately not just in our community, but it seems like all over the country it's happening. So please keep our officers in your prayers daily, all our first responders. It's amazing what's going on in our country, and just sad. Next item on the agenda is call to the public. Any citizen desire to speak on a matter that's within the jurisdiction of the City Council may do so at this time. Comments may be limited to 3 minutes per person and shall be addressed to the City Council as a whole and not to any individual member. Issues raised shall be limited to those with the jurisdiction of the City Council. Pursuant to Arizona Open Meeting Law, City Council cannot discuss or act on items presented at this time. At the conclusion of the call to the public, individual City Council members may, 1, respond to criticism made by those who have spoken, 2, ask staff to review a matter, 3, ask the matter to put on a future agenda. And at this time, I have Mr. Skibble. Skibby, come on up. Well, I'll help you.
Okay, I appreciate it. Somebody keep the clock running.
I need your name and address for the record, too.
Bill Skibby, William, formerly 721 South Pine Haven.
Thank you.
Okay. We live in Pine Haven. Obviously, I am the duly elected secretary of the HOA. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but let's see. We had a meeting about the middle of May, I think it was the 14th. And at the end of our HO meeting, we just had a general discussion. And one of the items of the general discussion was the insane increase in traffic on Owen since it's been opened up between the Deuce and Central. Issues are like people going well over what we think the speed limit is, and I think it's 25. Don't know, it's not posted. Heavy truck traffic, semi-traffic, Old Dominion trucks, 7-car haulers. That's about it. They grind up the hill headed east and they engine brake down the hill, or grind up the hill headed east and engine brake down the hill going further east. And they're moving. I don't know if that falls in the city's jurisdiction or not, but if it does, we're asking for your help.
What we can do is we can have, I'll need to get your phone number with our city clerk, and we can have staff look into that for you.
Okay, that'd be great.
Because there's all kinds of ordinances on that. So we can have staff look into that for you, definitely. We just need you to make sure you leave your phone number before you leave.
Will do.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Next item, call the public. Mr. Roberts.
Mayor, council, citizens. On behalf of
So,
the,
can you move over a little bit? There you go.
I am Doug Roberts, and my address is 1441 North 36th Drive in Show Low. On behalf of the Rim Country Cruisers and all who participated in and volunteered for and came and saw our car show on Saturday and participated in the cruise on Friday night, we are grateful and acknowledge the tremendous assistance that we received from the city and all the city personnel, Public Works, Parks and Rec, everybody that supported us in every facet, and the community at large. We had many more vendors this year than we've had in the past. We had almost as many participants as we had last year, which was a record. It looks like our revenues are going to be similar, if not exactly, about the same as what we had last year, which is great. All of our proceeds go to the local office of the Salvation Army, and so they benefit from that, and it's all kept here on the mountain. But we are grateful. We're grateful for the LDS Church for letting us use their parking lot, for the police department who was there promptly at 5:20 Friday night to help us get out of the parking lot, and are grateful for all of our sponsors, including Hatch Toyota and the hospital, and we have several major sponsors. Hatch Toyota provided a burger bring on Friday night for the cruise participants. It was just awesome. It all went well. We had about 120 to 130 cars in the cruise. Our field was covered with really, really nice cars, and it went very smoothly. We didn't have any incidents. We didn't have any problems. Couldn't have gone much better. The weather was great, except for a little bit of wind and maybe a little too much sun. But other than that, those kind of complaints we'll take all day long. So just a thank you to everybody that was very supportive, the city in general. Everything went well. So thank you.
Mr. Roberts. It was a great event, definitely. All righty, no more call to the public. Next item on the agenda is special events, a presentation by City Cholo American Disabled Act Committee. Mr. Tragaskas. Wait, I'm used to big books and stuff. It's gonna be different.
I've got a stack over there if you want me to bring them up, no problem. Okay, thank you. So Mayor, members of council, appreciate the introduction. For those of you watching in the audience or at home, my name is Justin Tragaskas. I'm the Planning and Zoning Director here at the City of Show Low. One of the hats I wear in that position is I am the ADA representative for the city, meaning if there are people who have perhaps questions or concerns related to the city and ADA compliance, I'm their first stop. I'm also a member of the ADA committee, of which Jay Brimhall is the chairman, hence why I'm giving the report this evening. This will be very similar to reports that you've received previously. Primarily what the intent is just to give you and members of the public an update on some ADA activities that we have here in the city, some that have been completed and some that we're looking forward to being completed here in the future. So a little bit of background on the committee itself. We've been around for about 4 years. We have members of staff as well as the public on that committee. Meetings are held quarterly to discuss our ongoing efforts. And I'll read this. The purpose of this committee is to review city policies, procedures, and recommendations related to implementing and making improvements to city facilities and programs based on federal ADA regulation. We've got just some of the ongoing projects that we have here. Transit, you may have noticed that we're receiving and installing new bus stops. These are ADA compliant. Part of the efforts there are to get the concrete pads like you see in this photo. Also, to leave a space on the side of the bench so that the bench doesn't go all the way across the bus shelter. There's a method behind that madness. If there's somebody who is in a wheelchair and is waiting for the bus, if the bench went all the way across, there really isn't room for them in that shelter in their wheelchair. So you'll see these new shelters now have additional room to allow them to get under cover in case of inclement weather or just the sun, as Mr. Roberts referred to just a few minutes ago. So that's what the new shelters look like there. And you can see off to the side that additional area. The big project that I think everybody in the city is extremely excited about is our new ADA accessible playground, as well as the Splashpad. These are being installed over at Frontier Fields. I've got a picture of that a little bit later. Those are under progress. They are in the process of being constructed. We do not have an actual completion date at this point. I did speak with our Public Works Department earlier this week. We're running into some supply chain issues, so it is something that we are diligently moving forward on. I would like to have completed as soon as possible. We understand there's quite a few people that are very excited and very interested, and we will get that done. It just is going to take us a little bit longer than we originally anticipated due to those issues outside of our control. We also have the Meadow Trail Phase 2. So we recently completed Phase 1 along with some fishing docks. Those are ADA accessible. Phase 2 will tie what was previously done, which got you about halfway through, get you all the way to the Hampton Inn. So you'll be able to go the length of that meadow on an ADA accessible trail. Here are just a couple pictures of the Frontier Park. Not really a lot to look at right now because it is under construction. However, we did want to point out the parking lot improvements. Number of our special events have already been able to take advantage of this paved parking lot. You can see there that we've already included the ADA parking spaces. We're not completely done with the parking lot. There's going to be some additional improvements there. For example, with these ADA spaces, we also need the ADA upright signs. So it's a work in progress, but it is something that we're looking forward to. Here's a list of completed and future projects, really in no order. We had the library expansion, which used grant and general funds. That has been completed. The Meadow Trail Phase 2 is nearly complete. Frontier Park Inclusive Playground and ADA accessible Splashpad are under construction. ADOT is doing some White Mountain Road connectivity down kind of by the Park Pineway Shopping Center and towards the hospital. That is ongoing. We recently completed sidewalk connectivity near Show Low Lake, and city park restrooms are under construction as well, which will be ADA accessible. We also have a additional sidewalk connectivity plan that is going to be coming with some additional sidewalks to be installed. Those also will be ADA compliant. So with that, I'm available for questions.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate that. Any questions or comments? We could probably make lots of comments about the playground. I know we're definitely all excited about it for sure.
It's yeah, a lot of interest in that. That's been a process and one that's not complete yet, but we're excited for it to come to completion.
I know I've seen I know we've all seen people walking the meadow, and that looks cool. So it's pretty exciting, some of the things we're doing around this town, that's for sure. Any comments or questions?
Justin, you may not know this answer, but with the project that's going on with ADOT towards Pine Top Lakeside, do you know how far the sidewalks will extend into that area?
I don't. Mr. Himsaw is here. He could give us a better update on the exact scope of that project. So appreciate him being able to jump in and answer that.
You bet. So the additional sidewalk and curb and gutter starts about where the Pet Sense building's at by the Park Pineway Plaza. Goes up through past that whole area there, past Culver's, even past Home Depot and Lowe's, and then I think it'll stop just where we hit the county at Elk Springs. Is that subdivision? Mm-hmm. Right across from Webb, and that'll be the extent of the additional sidewalk and curbing they're putting. They're still leaving things uncurbed from Fallbrook basically back to Pine Oaks.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I think that's a really great project. You see people along those sidewalks currently, even though they're not completed, and very much needed.
They're running into concrete supply issues too. That's why it's slowing up a little bit, but it's coming along.
Councilman Adams.
Hey, I just wanted to thank you and your staff for all the hard work on the ADA, making sure our different parks and trails and everything I just wanted to thank you for that and your staff, if you tell them for us.
Yeah, and we appreciate that. I get to be kind of the face of it, just based on the hat that I'm wearing there. But our Public Works Department and our Engineering Department do quite a bit on all these projects that they do, that they design in-house to bring to you guys for approval, to make sure that they meet those ADA specifications. So while I'm the guy up here with the big smile, a lot of it is really due to them. So want to make sure that they get appropriate recognition as well.
Well, thank you for everything.
Justin, one quick question on the parking lot there at Frontier Field. I know you guys have already looked at it. With the expansion of the parking lot, do we need to add more handicap parking in there, or what's the percentage that we need to have in there?
Right.
And I guess I'm thinking of because of the playground.
Right. So when you look at the actual ADA specifications, there's a table contained within those guidelines. It's not a straight ratio of one parking space, ADA parking space equals 20 non-ADA parking spaces, kind of a sliding scale. So we have to look at it based on the total number of parking stalls available in that area. Based on that, yeah, we do meet those numbers. So it is something that we do. It's not a number that I have right off the tip of my tongue to say, hey, we've got 250 parking spaces that requires X number of ADA spaces. I don't have that, but it is part of the design review.
So just looking at that picture, we can add more, obviously, right?
Yes.
I guess what I'm getting at, should we go all the way around that? I mean, do we, or can we, or why wouldn't we? Since that parking lot's going to be so huge when it's completed.
So the ADA, the playground and the splash pad that's there, obviously it's being designed with accessibility in mind.
Mm-hmm.
We expect that there will be quite a bit of demand for it for people who need the accessibility features.
Right.
But that doesn't preclude other people from using the playground and the splash pad as well.
Sure.
I think from our perspective, it's probably something where we would like to show, hey, we're meeting what's required, and then let's monitor it. And if we're seeing higher demand for those ADA spaces than what we actually have, then we can go back in and stripe it with the ADA spots. So.
Good. Thank you. Any other comments? Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. Okay, next on the agenda that we'll consider is I'll look for a motion for the consent calendar for consideration of approval of declaration of service supplies, consideration of acceptance of city campus parking lot improvements, consideration of acceptance of supervisory control data, consideration of acceptance of Reed House foundation repair. Oh, that got big. Consideration of a non-commercial ground lease with La Copas LLC. Consideration of approval of final development plans for Woodside Recreational Vehicle Park. Consideration of approval of final plat for Silver City at Buffalo Bills location. Consideration of approval of final plat for Buffalo Bills Resort Villas. Consideration of acceptance of Bison Pass. Consideration of resolution number R022-11, granting utility easements to APS. Consideration of acceptance of sunken manhole repair project. Consideration of approval of license agreement with Kachina Amateur Radio. Consideration of approval of list of city-owned vehicles as exempt vehicles. And consideration of the minutes of the special meeting May 17th, also the regular meeting on May 17th. Are there any items that want to be pulled or discussed? If not, I'll entertain a motion to accept that long consent calendar as semi-read. Vice Mayor, got a motion?
First of all, I'd like to
go
make a comment before I make the motion. There's a number of development projects on this list, and I just like to express our appreciation to those developers that are working hard to bring some additional housing to our community. It's sorely needed, and so I appreciate that. And with that being said, I'd like to move to approve the consent calendar as presented.
Thank you. Got a motion, got a second by Councilman Adams. All those in favor? All those opposed, same sign. Motion passed. Thank you. That doesn't mean everybody run out.
Bruce is already leaving.
You can stand up when you leave, Bruce. You don't have to crawl. You don't have to hide. Thank you, Bruce. Okay, next item on agenda is new business. Consideration of award contract for commercial trash dumpster / roll-off service in the city of Show Low.
Thank you, Mayor and Council.
City of Show Low, project number FM 5722. Mr. Cuff, sorry about that.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. The city has had commercial dumpster roll-off services for 8 years by Larson Waste, Inc. The contract has reached its final year. In April 2022, staff advertised for bids for commercial trash dumpster roll-off services at various city facilities. The contract term will be for 3 years with an option of an additional 2 one-year renewals. On May 10th, 2022, bid packages were publicly opened at City Hall. 3 responsive bid packages were received as shown on the attached bid tabulation, and that should be in your packet. Staff determined that Waste Management was the most cost-effective bid. The city currently has 1 2-yard dumpster, 2 4-yard dumpsters, 9 6-yard dumpsters, and 1 15-yard dumpster, and 2 30-yard dumpsters. The bid proposal will give staff the flexibility to determine service frequency and size of container at each location. Staff recommends awarding the contract for commercial dumpster / roll-off collection services to Waste Management Incorporated, effective July 1, 2022.
Thank you, sir. Any questions or comment? Or motions?
I'll move to award the commercial trash dumpster roll-off contract to Waste Management Incorporated for an initial term of 3 years, beginning July 1st, 2022, with 2 additional 1-year options, and authorize the mayor to sign the contract.
Got a motion? Need a second? Councilman Adams? Got a motion and a second? All those in favor? All those opposed, same sign. Motion passed.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate that. Next item on the agenda is consideration of resolution number R 2022-10, adopting the tentative budget, establishing the expenditure limitations for fiscal year ending June 30th, 2023. Mr. Johnson.
Thank you, Mayor and council members. For tonight, we have a presentation on the tentative budget. When we last met to talk about budget in May, we presented the changes to the city manager's recommended budget. And for the tentative budget tonight, we will discuss a few additional changes, and then at the end of the presentation, we'll need the council to make a motion to adopt a tentative budget and set the expenditure limitation. So to maintain transparency for the general public and everybody who's interested in our budget, we have a lot of open meetings. We have budget town halls, a couple, and then all of our meetings are posted and open to the public as well. If you look at the calendar, it shows where we're at tonight on June 7th for the tentative budget adoption. In 2 weeks, then we'll meet with the council again to do the final budget adoption. This is just a reminder of the council goals and priorities. These are the items that we consider when we work with the council and staff to build the budget for the upcoming year. We want to preserve, maintain infrastructure, enhance quality of life, provide community and economic development opportunities, and then we want to strengthen our organization and have good employees and good goals in mind when we're proceeding with the budget. So the changes that I would like to cover tonight, and these are just the changes from the draft tentative, which we discussed at the last council meeting. There's $493,000 of changes there, and I can outline those for the council. They're all related to project carryovers, which are projects that we expected to be done before June 30th, but now we're finding that they're not going to be done, so we've had to take those projects and push them into next year. So no additions in this list. It's just items that we weren't able to complete at by the end of the year. The first one's the city entrance sign makeover for $150,000. Rehab of the tennis courts at City Park, $130,000. The lighting at BMX track, $109,000. And then a payment on the taxiway A overlay of $103,000. So that's how we get the $493,000. Any questions on those changes? This is a breakdown of our adopted budget versus what we've actually spent. And back in fiscal year 21, the last completed fiscal year, you can see that we underspent the budget by 20 million. We had a budget of 60 million and only spent 40. In fiscal year 22, we had an increase in the budget. There are a couple of reasons for that increase. We did some bonding to increase the project load for streets and sewer. And we also had project carryovers coming out of COVID, and other supply chain related issues has caused us to push budget from one year to the next. And we're up against a similar thing for fiscal year 23 between project carryovers and ARPA funding and other different items. That's why our budget has increased from 72 million to 98 million this year. So any questions on these numbers? This is a breakdown of our revenues, our funding sources. Our beginning fund balance makes up 35.5%, operating revenues 49.2%, other financing sources 7.9%, and then interfund transfers, which are funds that move between the enterprise funds and the general fund and the HERF fund, at 7.3%. This is a breakdown of the revenues as far as the actual dollar amounts. 40 million in beginning balances. That includes our savings and reserves from prior years. Other financing sources, we have $9 million budgeted for unanticipated events. And an example would be if we received a grant that we did not build into the budget. This is a placeholder. And typically when this money is used, you have revenue that's going to offset your expenses too. And it requires council approval and would be brought to council at a council meeting for approval. Interfund transfers, and then operating revenues of 55.8 million. And these are revenues that will be collected or earned during the year through either fees or taxes or services charges. And this is a breakdown of the 55 million. Local taxes is 26.3%, state shared revenues 12.3%, miscellaneous revenues 18.1%, intergovernmental revenues 16.7%, utility fees 16.9%, and charges for services 9.4%. And this is the detail of the utility fees that total approximately 9.4 million. In the water fund, utility fees generate about 5.1 million in revenues, wastewater 3.1 million, and the water and wastewater rates will increase in January 1st of 2023 with the CPI adjustment per the resolution that was adopted back in 2014. The sanitation, we talked about the rates at our previous meeting, but the rates will be increasing July 1st. Our sanitation contractors experience the same issues that a lot of businesses have with fuel prices increasing, materials increasing, labor shortages, and they look at the fuel prices and the CPI, and then they also had some extraordinary costs that they have passed on to our customers. Yes.
On the CPI adjustment, I know we put that in for every January 1st. With inflation being such as it is, isn't there a cap that we placed on the CPI adjustment that it would be a maximum of?
I'm not sure what that cap would be. I would have to look at the resolution. Are you familiar with that?
I'm not sure we put a cap on the water and sewer. There is a cap on cemetery plots of 2%.
Okay, thank you.
That's something we can watch closely if that's the council's request and bring that back to the council for consideration once we do that. It does allow the CPI, but definitely want to be mindful of the residents when we make that adjustment.
Okay, thank you.
So the regular and recycle fee will go from $15.92 to $17.50. And for additional carts, for those that have 2 carts or more, that'll go from $7.03 to $7.25. And one thing I will mention, I think we mentioned it at the last meeting, is even at the rate of $17.50, we're still about the same or less than we were in 2012 with no recycle. So we got a very good rate on that contract, and we feel pretty good about it, even though it's going up $1.58. It's still a very good deal, and our residents have had very cheap rates for quite a while. Local sales tax, we budgeted at 14 million. Our year-to-date total is a little over 17 million, which is about 5 million more than we budgeted in fiscal year 22. And our state shared revenues are continuing to come in strong, and we did see some increases across the board with those. So overall, good revenues on the tax side, on the shared and the local sales tax. And this is a list of some of the intergovernmental revenues. So we have the grant revenues, we have the AZ CARES from fiscal year 21, ARPA funds in 22 and forthcoming in 23, money from the FAA for airport grants as well as the state. And then with the transit, we have the 5311 grant. That's federal transit money passed through the state. And any new grants that we receive will come to the council before we accept those. This shows a breakdown of the expenditures by type. For capital, we have 43.9%, operations 21.8%, and then personnel at 21.3%. We do have a significant amount of reserves also, 9% with a total of $8 million. And that's broken down into general fund, water and wastewater. And then we also have an additional 2.1 million in reserve for a future treatment plant or a new well. Personnel, we do have an addition of 4 employees, 2 full-time equivalents in the police department. One of those is a sworn officer in operations contingent upon receiving the GOHS, the Governor's Office of Highway Safety grant for a multi-agency traffic squad. And then we also have an addition of 1 dispatcher in communications, an addition of 1 full-time equivalent in administrative services, an addition of 1 full-time equivalent in water, and then a decrease of 0.6 FTE in the city attorney's budget. As far as the state retirement, the Arizona state retirement for the regular employees has a slight decrease from 12.41 to 12.17. And the PSPRS, even though the recommended rate has dropped significantly due to our extra contributions, we're still leaving that at the 39.74% to try and stay ahead of inflation and other things going on with that fund. Any questions on the personnel? That's just a breakdown of the total full-time equivalents going back to 2014. This is our personnel numbers by service area. In public safety, 62.3. 34 of those are sworn officers. Community services, 26. General government, 22. Planning and zoning, 7. Public works, 31. And utilities, 28. This is a breakdown of our capital. It's about 40% of the budget. Reach and engineering, 10.3 million. The parks and facilities maintenance, 5 million. Airport, 3 million. Wastewater, 5.4 million, which does include some of the projects that we issued bonds for that we weren't able to complete this year. And then water at 6.7. And then the last item on that list is the 300,000 that the council has in contingency for use at the council's discretion. This is a breakdown of the reserves that we spoke about earlier. General fund, 4.2 million. Water operations, 1.1. Wastewater, 600,000. The first 2 line items there are both equivalent to 3 months of operating. And then the wastewater is between 2 and 3 months of operating. So pretty healthy reserves to operate those funds should there be any unforeseen situations where the revenues are depleted or the revenues stop coming in. This is our total debt service for the year, around $3 million, and gives you a breakdown of all the annual principal and interest payments. The two new ones would be the excise tax revenue obligation bonds 2021 and second series 2021. Those are the streets and wastewater bonds respectively. So those cause that number to go up about $1,080,000. This is a breakdown of the expenditures by service area. Public Works 27%, utilities 25.5%, general government 27.4%, public safety at 15%. And then within that total is the general fund total, and this is a breakdown of how the general fund expenditures are by department. So police is 26.7% of the general fund, general operations 28.8%, facilities maintenance 8.1%, airport 10.1%, and most of the rest of them are less than 5%, broken out by the different departments. So what's next? Tonight, we need to adopt a tentative budget, which establishes the expenditure limitation, resolution R2022-10. And then if the council approves that tonight, then we will advertise the state budget forms in the paper for 2 weeks to prepare for the final budget adoption on June 21st, which will also be a public hearing on the final budget and the tax levy. And then the secondary property tax levy for the Streetlight Improvement District will be brought to the council at the July 19th meeting. No, that was a lot, but I am available for any questions.
Thank you,
I don't
sir.
have a big stack of books like Justin Tregaskis, but I just have a small stack.
Appreciate that. Questions, comments? Vice Mayor?
Sorry.
Were you
Talking all
waving?
night, yeah.
Okay.
Justin, if you would, for the audience's edification, would you explain how we maintain our conservancy by budgeting 5% less than what we anticipate our revenues will be?
Yeah, so we have a couple of different methods there. Usually for the state shared revenues, we budget 95% of the prior year's actual. So there's a 5% cushion there. With our local sales tax, which is a huge component, we don't necessarily have a number there, but it's always significantly less. Like the last couple of years, it's been closer to 15% less than our prior year's actual. So those are two major sources of revenue in general fund, and that helps us by projecting lower. If we do run into a recession or some type of financial situation, we have surplus funds that we can help smooth that transition.
Thank you.
Did that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
I appreciate Vice Mayor Kakavas's question, and this is something that I learned when I've been on the council. So I would ask that Justin, if you could explain for the audience and viewers at home, why is there such a discrepancy in the amount that we budget and then what we actually spend, and what happens to that difference each year that we don't actually spend the total amount? You know, one of the things I didn't realize is those are a lot of times those are projects carried over and stuff like that. So
yeah, so the bulk of it's going to be project carryovers. For example, the Splashpad, we had $2 million budgeted in the current fiscal year, but we've only spent maybe $450,000 of that $2 million. So that's why when you look at fiscal year 22's total budget, that $1.6 million is not going to be spent. So that's just one project. We have a number of projects in streets, water, and wastewater, very similar, where we expect to spend them all this year. We don't, so that just shows the budget number, the budget total is still the same, but what we actually spent is different. In general fund, when we do our conservative budgeting for revenues, when those dollars don't get spent, they're not necessarily tied to a project. They roll over to your fund balance. So at the end of the fiscal year 21, our fund balance in general fund was about $22 million. And that does include your $8 million in reserves. So you have close to $14 million of unbudgeted fund balance there that could be used for other things.
great, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments or motions?
I'll make a motion.
Vice Mayor?
I move to adopt resolution number R 2022-10, adopting the tentative budget and establishing the expenditure limitation for fiscal year 2023 at $98,607,479.
Thank you. I got a motion, second by Councilman Hatch. All those in favor of the motion? All those opposed, same sign. Motion passed. Thank you, sir.
Welcome.
At this time, the city council will recess into a special meeting of the Low Bluff Community Facilities District to adopt a tentative budget for fiscal year 2022-23 for the district. Mr. Johnson.
Thank you, CFD board members. So tonight for the tentative budget, we have for fiscal year 23, $169,960 in the budget. For those who may not be aware, the Low Bluff Community Facilities District was formed by property owners of the district in 2005, a separate unit of government from the city, and any debt issued for this district must be covered by the district's assessed value. And the benefit of that debt must be for the district. And in this case, it was for infrastructure. So there were two separate bonds issued. There was a special assessment bond and a general obligation bond. The general obligation bond was the one that would appear on people's property tax notices. That bond has been paid in full as of 2018, so it no longer appears on the tax notices. So there are no additional property taxes related to the CFD any longer, just the special assessment. Special assessment bond was issued in 2007 at $2 million. The annual debt service is $152,160. There are 227 total parcels in the CFD, and the Low Bluff Development Corporation owns 127 of those, or 56%. And there's unbudgeted reserve of $204,629. On the revenues, our beginning fund balance is $238,000, and then our annual assessment billing for fiscal year 23 will be $130,783. In June, there will be bills sent out for principal and interest on the assessment, and then December there's an interest-only billing. So tonight, the board will need to adopt the tentative budget and establish the expenditure limitation, and then it'll be advertised in the paper, and then the final budget adoption will be on June 21st, and there'll also be a public hearing. I'm available for any questions.
Any questions or comments? No? We do need a motion to adopt that?
Yeah.
I'll entertain a motion to adopt the tentative budget from somewhere.
I move to adopt resolution number R 2022-01, adopting the tentative budget and establishing the expenditure limitation for fiscal year 2023 at $169,960 for the Low Bluff Community Facility District.
Got a motion, got a second by Councilman Adams. All those in favor? All those opposed, same sign. Motion passed.
Just a point of order is that would be board member Adams and
Board member.
board member Kakopoulos for the minutes.
I bet she probably wrote them that way. I say a lot of things they write different anyway. It's just normal when I'm sitting here. So thank you, Mr. Johnson. I appreciate that. At this time, we'll return back to our regular.
You got
Yes.
the minute. You got to do the minute.
Do what?
The minutes.
Minutes.
Oh. The minutes for the bluff?
Yeah.
I don't have them on here, so I ain't doing it. I need a motion to accept the minutes of the bluff.
Moved.
Got a motion, need a second? Got a second by Councilman Adams. All those in favor? All those opposed, same sign. You guys got to put it on here. I ain't reading it. You know that.
On the agenda right there.
It's on the different page, I know. Can't run this laptop quick enough. Okay, now we'll return back to our regular meeting. Next item on the agenda is summary of current event. Council members.
I am.
Councilman Hatch.
I happened to be over at the parking lot at the Meadow, and I should have brought this up when you were up speaking, but we had an out-of-towner that came in and was totally overwhelmed by the improvement that he'd seen. He hadn't seen it for many years. And he looked at that building that was built for the pavilion. And we got a lot of positive comments from him and people that were riding with him. Thought it was just marvelous what had happened there. So thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Vice Mayor, Matt, you've never talked this much in high school.
I know. You know, as I reviewed this packet for this meeting, I realized there's 125 pages to this packet, and I just wanted to commend our staff for the wonderful job that they do in bringing everything forward to the city council. It takes a lot of work, not only for the city clerk's office, but for all of the different departments that present items. It's extensive, and I just want to thank you for all your service.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. That was awesome. It's nice to see these developments go for sure. Anybody else? Councilor Clark.
Mayor, I was able to attend this funeral of Pete Stock over on Saturday, and Pete was the president of the Show Low Irrigation District. He had served in that capacity for a little while, and he and his family have been founding members of this community. They homesteaded property that's up there north of 16th. Pete often used to complain and jest that the city and people stole Fool's Hollow from him, so he had unequivocal rights to go to Fool's Hollow without having to get a pass at any time or anything like that. But he was definitely a one-of-a-kind individual who those of us who knew him best are going to miss him the most. He was a true treasure for Show Low, so we wish his family and his friends our thoughts and prayers are definitely with them, and the love of a community to one of our own sons is definitely sent out to them. So
absolutely. Thank you, Councilman Clark. That's pretty awesome. Anybody else? Real quick, I got a couple. We went to the car show this weekend, and I know it was already brought up, but I can tell you that downtown area between the car show and the farmers market was amazing. And I've worked on cars my whole entire life, so car shows, I pick cars apart like you couldn't imagine. But I think my mayor's choice was a 34 Studebaker something. Absolutely the most amazing car I've seen in the years that I've ever got to go down there and judge a car. But it was absolutely. Thank you, Doug and Rick and everybody in that crew. I know you guys do a lot of work in there, but it was a great car show. And you're right, the most cars I've ever seen for sure. But after that, we did the farmer's market. Me and my wife, when we leave on a Saturday morning, we usually leave at 8:30, 9 o'clock and don't get home till 8:30, 9 o'clock because there's so much things going on in our town. But we finally made it over to BMX track. And I can tell you, if you have not been there, you're definitely missing out. Watching these from 3-year-olds to 70-year-olds, it was absolutely amazing. The most people I've seen in that area. I mean, we don't have enough room down there. I can tell you, we need more parking down. There's a lot of things we need down there, and it's another venue that we're working on. And I know this council's kind of doing what we've done to Frontier Park, but it's a process. But if you get a chance, I'm not sure when the races are. You can follow on social media, but it was amazing I'm trying to think of the last name of the family. The Bag family has done to that. But the community support for those races, I had a list of them, but I can tell you on Saturday, they had almost 90 motos for these kids. And that was incredible. I mean, to watch them take off on that track, and by the time they get to the last turn, another one goes. And it's entertaining. It was amazing. So if you get a chance, check them on social media and try to get over there and watch it. This was I believe it was a regional race or a qualifier or something like that. But there was, if I had to guess, probably 3,000 people there Saturday. There was awnings as far as you could see. Absolutely amazing. So anyway, if you get a chance to do that. The other thing that's been kind of on my mind, I've talked to the city manager a lot, that I think our country and our town is losing, is volunteering in your community. I know there's a lot of us that do that, and that's part of, I think, living in rural Arizona and living in a community like this. But you got to remember that our staff is shorthanded as well. There's a lot of things that Public Works people are doing right now in our community to keep our water flowing, our sewer running. They're so busy, but there's a lot of, I get a few complaints from people about some of the weed controls that we have in our community. Yes, you're right. We do have it, but our staff, we're short staffed. So I would ask you, if you get a chance and you have weeds out in front of your house, it is our easement. I know we have to take care of it. Walk out there with your weed eater, help us out. And we really need to get back to volunteering in our community and helping keep our community beautiful. I was leaving a meeting with the city manager earlier, and I drove by the post office, and I could not believe it. So I whipped in there. Of course, it was 4:35, and they close at 4:30. So I didn't get a chance to go in there, but I'm going to make that a point because that's right at our downtown. And if you go over there, go ahead and complain to them. I don't mind at all. But that place is terrible. That's the worst I've ever. That corner used to be beautiful. I mean, you got the motel that's beautiful right there, and then it stops at our post office. Are you kidding me? And I'm kind of on a kick with that. The city manager hears from me daily about it. But our staff they just can't do it. They can't keep up. Monsoons aren't here yet. So please, if you get a chance, especially out in front of your own home, it is our easement. It is our responsibility. Take 10 minutes out of your weed eating and give us a hand. So that's my spiel. Thank you. Appreciate it. City manager.
Thank you, Mayor. So this year's project Clean Sweep will end this Saturday, which is it's the last day you can haul debris to the Lone Pine Land Transfer Station from 8 to 4 p.m. Remember, you have to be a resident having garbage service and show that your driver's license or your water bill, garbage bill to the Lone Pine Transfer Station. You'll be able to dump for free there. In addition, the bulky item pickup will continue tomorrow, Wednesday, and Thursday for those that have trash on those days. A couple of events this weekend. On Saturday, June 11th, is the Sholo Days at Frontier Field, 9 a.m. to 10 p.m. They'll have music, arts and crafts, a kids zone, and food there. And also Main Street's weekly farmers market will continue 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. this Saturday, Festival Marketplace. And in public works projects, we're continuing with some of the public works projects. McNeil Acres, subdivision south of us here, that sewer project started yesterday. They're continuing on McNeil and 4th on the other side of Deuce Clubs. And the slurry project is going to begin on June 14th. And you can look at our website to look at the schedule for that. But if you're in an area that's going to be slurried this year, the contractor will notify the affected residences prior to the street being slurry sealed. So pay attention to those notices, and if you have any questions on that, you can contact us at City Hall or the Public Works Department. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. The bulk item pickup, what community does that? Look what our community does to try to help keep our community clean. So anyway, I appreciate that, city manager, very much. Anybody need second? No seconds. Schedule on meetings, I don't think we have any. No. Okay, if there's no more business before this council and nobody wants seconds, I'll adjourn this meeting. Thank you guys very much for coming.